And what I realized, and everyone's got that uniqueness, the goal is really just to dive into that a bit more, is I've just found from personal experience that people of the same ethnicity as me tend to relate more to me. So I should focus my marketing on them.
Today we have Brenden, the founder and CEO of Mastertalk. Welcome, Brenden.
Hey, thanks for having me, Ryan. It's great to be on.
Thanks so much for being here. Can you tell us a bit about your business?
Yeah, absolutely happy to. So Master Talk is both a YouTube channel and a public speaking coaching business where we help executives and entrepreneurs become top 1% communicators in their industry. But my mission, which is probably a bit more interesting, is I want to make every human being in the world exceptional speakers.
Wow, I love that. And how did you get started?
Yeah, for sure. So when I was in university, I used to do these things called case competitions. Think of it like professional sports, but for nerds. So while other guys my age were playing rugby or cricket or something aggressive that I probably aren't built to do, I did presentations competitively, right? And what happened is I accidentally developed a skill on how to coach other people on how to speak as students were entering the program. So when I started my corporate job at IBM, where I worked as a consultant for a few years, I had the idea for Master Talk because I realized a lot of the information on public speaking that's available for free online wasn't really good. You hear advice like, oh, you should be yourself and get up on a stage and speak. And I was like, this is not very specific or practical. So I started creating those videos myself, and then a few years later, it turned into a movement and a business.
Wow, I love it. And so, where do you bring the most value to the marketplace now?
Yeah, I would say most of the value that we bring to the marketplace is really in terms of two areas. One is what I call the anti-customer, so the person who can't afford a speech coach, which is how do we democratize information on communication in a way that anyone can be a great speaker. Like for example, I think the next Elon Musk is probably a 7-year-old girl who can't afford me. So my goal with her, similar to what Gary Vaynerchuk has done from a content marketing and strategy perspective, is how do we make sure that she's still involved in the ecosystem, she can still learn with the free content. That's the piece. And the other piece with the core customer is we reinvented the way that speech coaching is being done. So most speech coaches do services one on one, whereas the approach that we've taken on, especially with the VPs and the managers in our client base, is our perspective is let's do a small group coaching program so they can practice longer with each other. And we also pair them up into accountability systems so they can practice during the week.
What a great idea. And a bit of a business mindset question for you. What had to change in you that took you from sort of that startup phase through to, I guess, the level of success that you're achieving now?
Yeah, for sure. And I'd love to quote a mentor of mine, Alex Hormozy, who's the author of the book $100 Million Offers. And Alex, built a very successful business called Gym Launch, where he helps turn around gyms, and he scaled that up to 9 figures. And what he said really stuck with me. He says that product is king. If you're always marketing and you're to get sales, it probably means your product isn't good enough. Versus refining the product, making sure it's absolutely world class, so it's much easier for you to scale. So, what I always recommend people do is once you figure out the general idea of what you want to be working on, you want to try that product, especially when you know it's good, across different customer segments to figure out who is getting the most value from your product. And once you figure that out, you can 10x. So how we found product market fit with our company, we're able to scale it up to a decent amount, was in regards to where does the pain of communication is accentuated the most? Because whenever there's the massive pain, there's a massive market. So in the context of what we built, we found that minority immigrants who are system architects in the technology space generally have the greatest pain and also have the money to afford communication coaching because without communication they cannot move on to the next level. So people whose second language is generally English are more likely to invest in communication coaching. So we focused all of our marketing efforts on that specific niche.
Wow. And that's really built your business?
Absolutely. I mean, it was so easy for them, especially in the context. What I always say to entrepreneurs is you always want to figure out what is the niche that you can win on. Like one of my good friends, a guy named Beryl Solomon, and he's really big on LinkedIn. He has like 70,000 followers. And he says it so well in a course I did with him. I spent a day with him. He said, "Look, at the end of the day, out of everyone who's going to buy from me, Jewish people are most likely to buy from me because I'm Jewish. Look at that." Right? So it's easier for him to get buy-in from that community. And what I realized, and everyone's got that uniqueness, the goal is really just to dive into that a bit more, is I've just found from personal experience that people of the same ethnicity as me tend to relate more to me. So I should focus my marketing on them, especially since the number of speech coaches who are of my background but have a Canadian/American accent is very, very small. So they tend to admire me a lot more, which leads to higher sales and much higher conversion rates on the sales calls. So start thinking about at the core, who is your customer? What is their ethnicity? What are their beliefs? What do they care about? And the more you're obsessed about understanding those little details, the easier it is for you to scale without spending too much on marketing.
Smart. So then, Brendan, could you give us one or two insights that gave you the biggest leverage when you were growing?
Oh, absolutely. I would say the key is really how do you 10x or 100x the value of any other customer? So I can speak specifically to my area of expertise, which is coaching and education specifically. And I would say in that area, it's a lot easier to stand out than most people think. I'll give you three key insights that we did in our business and our programs to 100x the value of anyone else. So one is a strategy we use from 0 to 100K called results based coaching. So what I would tell executives, especially with me, the challenge was I was much younger than a lot of people I was coaching. I'm 25 currently, but my oldest client is 57. So how do you build that trust? So here is the way I approached it on strategy calls, especially when I knew the person had money, the person was integrity, and they had the right intentions. I would literally tell them, look, I'll give you a couple of free sessions, but if I get you the result, this is the fee. So they were shocked because no other coach in the industry is that confident in the result that they can deliver, that where they're not willing to take the money until the result is delivered. So that's how I built a lot of relationships with high-end executives at IBMs of the world and the Salesforce of the world, because they said, you know what, might as well bet on this guy. But I've already tried 3 speech coaches in the past, nothing worked. And then they get in the program, they notice how crazy intense I am, and then we get the result, and then word of mouth spreads. So that's number one. Find ways to add value where other people haven't. So results based coaching is one of them. A second thing that's a bit more secret sauce that not a lot of business owners can implement, but I'll still say it as inspiration, is one of the secrets behind our strategy is we actually coach our executives as kids too. So there's a great saying, one of my mentors told me this, Ryan. He says there's 3 ways to change somebody's life: change their health, change their wealth, or change the life of their children. So let me repeat that again: change their health, change their wealth, the life of their children. So when we thought about communication coaching, what we realized is the greatest gift that we can give our executive clients, that is not a candy bar, that is not flowers and wine that they can just drink or eat and forget, is to provide transformation for their kids. So I invest like 2 hours of my week just to coach my CEOs as kids, and then the relationship we have with the client is completely different. So let's say me and you have the same client, you're going to talk to them and they're going to say, Ryan is such a good guy. I love Ryan. I love what he's doing for his clients. I love working with him. But when that same client is talking to me, I'm not just talking to the CEO. I'm talking to their son too. Their son jumps on the call and goes, I love Brenden. Of course you do. So when I ask that client for referrals, they always respond with, Brenden, why didn't you come to me sooner with this? Here's 10 names right now. Boom. And they throw it on the table because the relationship we have with the client is very unique compared to other vendors. So start thinking about ways in how you can 10x. And then I would say the third piece, beyond adding more value than anyone else in the market and adding the piece around coaching their kids, is also about how fast you can get the result for somebody. So especially in coaching, the smaller you can compress the time frame, the more you can charge, and the faster you can scale. So we can get somebody results in 45 minutes. So when you want to start asking yourself as a service-based provider, if you're in that business, or even product-based, is ask yourself, what is the easiest result or outcome that you can deliver for a client before they become clients? So if you're a product-based business, maybe it's a sample of your chocolates. If you're a service-based business, instead of just selling people in a strategy call, it's just 30 minutes of value. Let me get you the result before you actually pay me for the result. And the faster you can do that, the faster you can scale.
Wow, that is phenomenal, Brendan. Thank you. That is great advice.
Of course, man.
And so, what advice would you give a business owner or CEO who really want to break through to their next level of growth?
Absolutely. So, just to make sure I have context as well, Ryan, or when you say mid-sized businesses, is it mostly people who have hit seven, or is it mostly multi-six hitting seven, or is it 7 to 8? What's the range usually? Because the advice would be different.
Yeah, sure. So most of our audience is sort of that 1 to 5 million range. We've got some billion-dollar companies, we've got some startups, but yeah, most of our audience is kind of in that 1 to 5 range.
Okay, cool. So what I would say for 1 to 5 in particular, so at this point, the business is really successful. You generally have one or two products that have scaled to an amount where people are raving fans. They love what you're doing. So now the next piece is 1 to 10. So there's one specific piece of advice that I'll give from my expertise, which is understand the value of communication at the 7 to 8 figure level. So what I tell entrepreneurs who are doing a million plus is they tend to not prioritize communication that much because they say, well, I got a product, my sales are doing well. But we need to understand, right, is at that level, you can't just be the founder running the entire business anymore. Because if you want to scale to 8 figures, now you have to empower more and more team members who are just as smart as you, not just employees who are just as smart as you, who can make strategic decisions in the company instead of you, right? That's how you scale. And for that to occur, you need to be really good at coaching, you need to be really good at mentoring, and more importantly, I'm sure you all talk about how to systematize an idea, a concept, but you also, the point I would add, you also have to communicate it in such a simple way where a senior leader who's getting onboarded into your team immediately knows what the founder is thinking about, what their thought process is, and how to deliver that result. So, what I would recommend for people at this level is to start prioritizing your communication skills. Here's an easy way to do it that nobody on this call has even thought of doing. We have so many goals with our businesses, our finances, our career, but how many of us have communication goals? Nobody. Nobody has communication goals. And even if they do, right, it's generally something super general, like start a podcast. It's like, what are you supposed to do? When you compare start a podcast with hit 5.2 million in revenue, very different goals, right? So what I'd recommend to get you started in that conversation is pick 3 speakers you really admire in your industry who are doing 10 times more money than you and 10 times more impact. And ask yourself thoughtfully how much time I am going to invest to really understand not their thought leadership, but how they communicate their thought leadership. So pick 3 speakers you really admire, focus on one of them, and invest, just block out 30, 45 minutes out of your calendar, watch one of them speak on a YouTube video, and just pay attention to how they deliver the message. And then you'll look at your business and you'll look at your speeches and go, oh shit, a lot of my stuff that I teach people is way too complex. And simplicity is what will help you scale.
Wow, so good. Brendan, I'm interested. If you could go back 5 years, and you're 25 now, if you could go back to 20 and give yourself one piece of advice, what would that be?
I would say for me, the biggest piece of advice I'd give myself, Ryan, is a quote that I always say on shows, which is be insane or be the same. If you want to be like everyone else, that's totally fine. But if you want to do something really important with your life, you need to be crazy. And every decision that you make needs to be odd. I mean, think about me. I started coaching C suite when I was 22 years old. I started a YouTube channel, not on pranks, not on music, but on executive communication tips. And I was able to build that into a business. But I still live in my mom's basement. I barely drive a car. I dance alone in that basement an hour a day, and I love Justin Bieber. How does that make any sense at all? And that's really the point I want to drive, Ryan, is when every decision in your life makes sense to the only person that matters, which is you, you'll learn to follow your intuition, live a fulfilled life, but more specifically, continually follow that intuition that got you to 7 figures, not just in business, but in every area of your life. Because I've seen so many people doing multiple seven who are miserable in other areas of life. So start applying that insanity to your business as you do with your health, your relationships, so that you're fully aligned and every wheel is spinning, not just the business.
Phenomenal. Yeah, that is great. So, finally, Brendan, who can you best help? And if they want to get in touch, how can they reach out to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So most of my client base, Ryan, are generally executives and entrepreneurs. But for anyone who's interested in free coaching, there's 2 ways to get involved with me. First one is my YouTube channel. Share everything for free there. That's Master Talk in one word. and the other way is the free workshop that you have linked in the description as well.
Fantastic. And we'll make sure that's around the video. Brenden, it's been amazing having you on the show. Thank you so much for the value.
Likewise, Ryan. Thanks for having me on.